Hey everybody, it's Sam from Wrestling Overtime, and we are starting our WrestleMania Saturday. I wanted to save the AEW Dynamite Raves and Rants to start off WrestleMania weekend. I will be trying to give you guys not only WWE coverage during this weekend. Like I said, I wanted to save up some AEW stuff, so you will be getting this review. And then hopefully about 3 hours from now, you will be getting your WWE Friday Night SmackDown Raves and Rants review. And then the way I have it planned is about 3 hours from then, you will be getting your news and updates broadcast for today before WrestleMania starts. And then I also hope to be putting out, I haven't wrote it out yet, so I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know how long it'll be. I'm thinking it will be semi-short. I am going to start being the Elite, and I am going to start from episode 1. And I'm going to do a couple at a time and kind of tell you what's going on and fill you in. I didn't watch Being the Elite from the beginning, so this is going to be new to me, and so I'm going to give you guys my opinion on it, plus almost recap it. So any of you that are out there that didn't start watching Being the Elite from the beginning, hopefully you'll listen to those and you'll be able to kind of pick up the flow that's been happening throughout the years of, them being in New Japan, being in Ring of Honor, them starting AEW, and then they've continued the Being Elite show basically from the start of AEW. And so hopefully that will help. I hope to get the first one of those also out today before night 1 of WrestleMania starts. I will be doing a results only, quick and easy show right after night 1 of WrestleMania, and then hope to get the raves and reviews of night 1 of WrestleMania out soon thereafter. But you will get a results of night 1 of WrestleMania as quick as, number 1, I can get it recorded, but number 2, also as soon as I can shoot it out from my podcasting host. So that is kind of the plan. So this is the Raves and Rants review for AEW Dynamite on April 1st, 2020. And this show started off, and I was a little concerned. I'm going to be very honest with you. Tony Schiavone opened it up, and he sounded extremely hoarse. And I immediately wondered, gee, is he, got sinuses? Is he caught a cold? What's going on? Now, as the show went on and he kept talking, his voice sounded a lot better. But when they opened up the show, he really did sound hoarse. And he opened up the show with Cody and Pharaoh. And for those of you who don't know Pharaoh, he is famous. He is probably one of the most famous dogs in wrestling today. It's Cody's dog. And, of course, Cody tried to get him to say something, and he didn't. But what they did was they opened up the show talking about the new TNT Championship Tournament bracket. They have decided to basically add a mid-card title, almost a TV title for those of you who watched back in the day of studio shows or the old NWA, WCW. And so they have decided to have this tournament. Now, the night before, Tuesday night, on AEW Dark, they revealed this. And they revealed the first 2 matches and 4 participants. And so what they did to start the show on April 1st was to reveal the other 4 participants located on the other side of the bracket and those 2 matches. So we're starting out with quarterfinals, then we're going to be doing semifinals, and then of course the finals are supposed to be May 23rd at Double or Nothing. So just to kind of recap for those of you who didn't listen to our episode, I'm so disappointed. But Wrestling Overtime put out a news and updates episode where we revealed the first 4 contenders that are going up in the first 2 matches. But for those of you who didn't listen to that episode or need a reminder, what they did on AEW Dark is announce it's gonna be Sean Spears, the chairman, versus Cody in the first quarterfinal. And then we're going to get Sammy Guevara versus Darby Allin. And I am very excited about these 2 matches. Cody and Sean Spears have known each other forever. And of course, if you watched last year's match between them and what even started it, with Sean Spears surprising Cody and hitting him over the head with the chair and cutting him on accident, and him having to have staples in his head, you know this is going to be a good match. And of course, then we've got the 2 young guns. I mean, we've got Darby Allin going up against Sammy Guevara, and they fly all over the place. But not only do that, they're pretty wrestling technique sound. And so I'll look for this match. If it's not a main event on Dynamite, it's going to steal the show. I think these 2 have the capability of putting on a match of the year candidate. I really do. So what they did in AEW Dynamite was announce the other side of the bracket. And the top part of that bracket is going to be Kip Sabian versus Dustin Rhodes. Now, of course, I'm not sure how great of a battle this is going to be, but the bottom part of the bracket is going to be Lance Archer versus Colt Cabana. And I'm kind of excited about that. Colt Cabana and Lance Archer have taken each other on quite a few times in Japan. And they have completely different styles of wrestling. So I'm kind of looking forward to that match also. Then they start in kind of previewing what we're going to see on the episode tonight. And they announce that there's been basically a new tag team created, the Natural Nightmares. And it's QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes, and they're going to be with Brandy Rhodes. She's going to be kind of guiding them along. They're going to debut tonight along with Lance Archer. He is making his long waited review or debut of the Murder Hawk. We heard that Lance Archer got signed to AEW, I don't know, probably 2 months ago. 3 months ago, and he is just now getting to debut. They've been doing a lot of video packages and vignettes and everything with him and Jake Roberts. So looking forward to seeing, number one, who he debuts against, and number two, how that goes. And then we're going to see Shadea in action, and the main event tonight is going to be the competitors that I just talked about on the left side of the bracket for the TNT Championship Tournament. It's gonna be Darby Allin and Cody versus Sammy Guevara and Shawn Spears. And I think this has all the makings of match of the night. These four guys can really turn it on. We've got two ring veterans with two young guns, and I am looking really forward to this. But they said, starting things off, we're going to have Trent versus Kenny Omega. Now, when I hear this, I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm not real excited. For those of you who have listened to previous episodes, I'm not really getting or feeling the best friends. I'm not real sure about Trent and Chuck Taylor being that great of a tag team. I don't know that they necessarily have tag team chemistry. I don't understand their gimmick, and I'm just not real sure about them. And then AEW kind of threw in Orange Cassidy, and that's never been explained. I don't get why Orange Cassidy is really hanging out with him, other than he is just super, super cool. I love Orange Cassidy, like as many of you do, and they had to find a way to get him into shows and get him on TV all the time. So it seems like they just kind of stuck him with the best friends. So seeing Trent as a single wrestler, I'm not really excited about. And then for those of you who also listened to episodes in the past, I didn't follow Kenny Omega. I didn't watch a lot of New Japan. Yes, I read the articles. Yes, I read and listened to all the different podcasts telling me that Kenny Omega is like the best wrestler on the planet, and probably his last, 6 months to a year that he was in New Japan, I caught a couple of his matches. And yeah, they were pretty good. Against Okada and Ibushi, I was pretty impressed, not only with Kenny Omega, but Okada. I mean, I'm real, impressed with him. So I wasn't sure how I felt about Omega. He showed up in AEW, and I definitely wasn't impressed. I don't know if it was where he used to wrestling more and he wasn't wrestling as much, or he was pressured because of his AEW vice president jobs and positions. And I know he's over the women's division. It's pretty much sucked. And he's been trying to fix that and everything. But I didn't feel like Kenny Omega showed himself the first 3 months of AEW. I just really, honestly, just wasn't impressed with him. And I didn't understand what the hype was about. He then went on his losing streak and his struggle with, himself and his confidence and all of that. And then he got hooked up with Adam Page. And that's where the tide, I think, for me, turned a little bit. And I got to see the Kenny Omega I think that everybody talks about. He got more confidence. They won the tag belts. And then we started seeing him in some six-man matches with the Young Bucks. And he really, his moveset became smoother and more natural and everything. I still want to see the person they call the cleaner, from New Japan. I really want him to kind of become that. And I think that may be where his personality lies and everything. So, to start this match off, what they do is we see on the left side, basically AEW has put the baby faces, and on the right side of your TV screen, behind the barricades, they've put the heels. So we see Austin and Billy Gunn on the left, and then we see Britt Baker, Kip Sabian, Jimmy Havoc on the right side. And so we see Trent come out, and he comes out with Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. And they are basically just kind of hanging out at ringside. And then Kenny comes out to what to me appeared to be a new video. It's not the video of him walking through the streets and kind of trying to find himself. He has a new black, almost heelish, I don't know any other way to really explain it, vest on, and it's got a collar around it and everything. And he doesn't appear to be in a really great mood. We do see that because this is live and they're taping in a new place, they are taping in an undisclosed location in Georgia, and he turns to go to the right side of our screen, and I think that he sees, oh, wait a minute, that's the heel side, and I don't know where I'm supposed to go. So he kind of ends up entering the ring through the middle of the ring, and then we see Orange Cassidy and Trent and Chuck Taylor not really know where they're supposed to go. So they end up in a different corner, and I think it was just a logistical thing that maybe we didn't really get ironed out before the show actually started. And so we got to see that since it was live on air. And so immediately as they're getting ready, I wonder, who am I supposed to root for? Technically, I think in AEW world, they're both baby faces. The best friends are obviously baby faces. The crowds cheer them, and they do the big hug, and they've got Orange Cassidy, who is over, and they're definitely baby faces. Well, then we've got Kenny Omega, who is also a babyface. He's part of the Elite. He runs around with the Young Bucks. He helped start the company. He, and the fans cheer him. So, who is the babyface? Who's the heel? What exactly am I seeing? Because as a fan of neither one, I don't really know what to do with this match. Luckily, I have Cody and Tony to listen to. And I think that's what saved this match for me. This is a good match. Watching it, technically, watching the going-ons back and forth, their different movesets, how they interplay off of each other, yes, it's a great match. If you like either one of these wrestlers, you need to look this up on YouTube. You need to look it up on AEW.com, because I think you would really, really, really enjoy it. I, however, enjoyed the commentary because we hear Cody talking about how Trent has been a pro wrestler for 16 years. I didn't know that. I thought he was a newer guy to pro wrestling. I had never heard of him before. I've never seen him until he came to AEW. I I had no clue. I didn't know that he basically had been a singles wrestler up until probably a year or two ago that he hooked up with Chuck Taylor. And they have created the best friends, and that was before AEW signed them and everything. So I didn't really know any of that about Trent. And then Cody starts talking about how Kenny is actually on a six-match winning streak, and how, he struggled in the beginning of AEW, kind of finding his way and winning and things like that. Tony kind of out of the blue says, we're going to hear from Jon Moxley, the world champion, tonight, and he just kind of lets him know that. But immediately after that, I really started enjoying Cody. Like I said, Kenny got a headlock on Trent, and that's how I would have described it. But no, Cody actually talks about how Kenny got Trent in an ear headlock, and how when you raise it up and you get it right on the ear, that it causes a little bit more pain, but most of all, it causes pressure when you use that kind of headlock. Oh my gosh, that's information I want. That's what I like about Taz. I feel like when Taz is on commentary, I learn something. And then I started noticing little things, and I think that's why I like AEW. They're bringing back the old but yet new style of wrestling to me. I grew up as a kid, like I said, with NWA, WCW. I didn't see a lot of WWE until, I was probably a teenager. My grandmother was a huge NWA, WCW fan, and so that's what she got me hooked on. I remember the Four Horsemen and Dusty Rhodes and, Ric Flair and all of that, Gordon Soley and Tony Schiavone and all of that. So I like how AEW is bringing back the commentary that actually talks about the moves and what the moves are doing and how they hurt or how they affect the body. I like how AEW's wrestlers are picking spots of the body, focusing on them, and then the wrestlers they're doing that to are selling it. But not only are they selling it, they're selling the facial expressions. They're selling, when they get up to make their comeback, they're still hurting in that body part, or they're hobbling on that body part, or things like that. I started watching and I saw the little things. I think Aubrey has upped her refereeing game through the roof. I saw her really talking to the wrestlers and doing the movements, like Kenny pushed Trent down on the ground. Aubrey stuck her hand towards Trent's shoulder to see, is his shoulder truly down, or can I get my hand there because it's up? And it's little things like that to me that make me want to stay in the wrestling bubble. Make me want to suspend disbelief and believe that wrestling is a sport and that I really, really care about things. So I really got into this match because I started noticing the little things. And like I said, because of Tony and Cody's commentary, I think they have really good chemistry. Now, of course, then I see Kenny hit the V trigger, and Trent tries to fight out of it, and Kenny hits him and shakes his hand, and then has problems lifting him up into the one-winged angel for the finish, and he won at the actual 1 minute time limit mark. Dasha had just announced that they had 1 minute to go in the match. And then after the match, they kind of showed Kenny shaking his hand. And it was then that I remembered, oh, Kenny doesn't have his hand taped. Why is his hand not taped? For several weeks now, they've been talking about how Kenny Omega has had his hand taped. And if you watch, AEW Dynamite last week, he had black tape / cast on his hand, and they were talking about how he had a boxer's fracture where it wasn't broke through and through. It's almost like a stress fracture, and he's been dealing with it for a couple weeks. So I kind of wonder, did he re-injure that? Is that going to become part of the storyline? Does he need to get that checked out? Because I even noticed as they were selling the match and talking about, what was going to be going on next, that as Kenny was walking away, he was kind of holding his hand as he climbed out of the ring and was walking away, kind of shaking it and stuff. So either he was selling really good, or that hand is still hurting and he probably should have kept it taped up. We see a flashback then of what all has been happening between Chris Jericho and Matt Hardy. Tony tells us that Chris Jericho has sent a video in and that they, are going to show it to us in a little bit. But it's basically talking about when Matt Hardy showed up and surprised Jericho, and then their confrontation in the ring they had, where Matt Hardy told him that he was 3,000 years old and was Damascus. But then it goes into, after commercial, a video package of Shadaya. And I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm really starting to like her. She's on a winning streak. And I think I said the other day, I don't feel like she's a normal, I believe it's pronounced Joshi, wrestler from Japan. I feel like she's got a lot more different kinds of moves. She is not that petite, almost gymnast looking wrestler where they do a lot of flips and flops and flying and all of that. She is combining more of American style wrestling with the Japanese style, and to a point she almost uses strong style from Japan a little bit. So I am really enjoying her and liking her. She's taken on Anna Jade, and they talk about how she's making her debut. Well, I'm going to tell you, this turned out not to be a bad match at all. I was afraid. I never heard of Anna Jade. I quickly looked her up, and she has been on the independent circle, and she's training which Cody mentions later in the match, that she has been training at the Nightmare Factory with QT Marshall. And I actually was fairly excited. She put on a good show with Shidea, and basically Shidea really worked with her and guided her. Now, I know from reading Twitter during the match and seeing some of the internet postings after the match that a lot of people were upset. They couldn't believe, here's Shidea, the number one rated women's wrestler, and that she let Anna Jade get so much offense on her. But I was kind of okay with that. Because she seemed to have a comeback or a defense against everything that Anna Jade really tried to get. I enjoyed, I really enjoyed at one point, Shideo ended up outside of the ring, and Britt Baker, who was on the hillside standing behind the barricade, watching the matches, must have said something to her. We couldn't hear what she said, but Shidea didn't care to, go after her. So Dr. Baker started yelling about, keeping a 6-foot distance and social distancing. And so Shidea was like, okay. And she turned around to start concentrating again on Anna Jade. And Shidea ended up getting the win, like I said, fairly easily. Anna Jade did get some offense in, and she sold really well. But after the win, Shidea went back over to where Britt Baker was, and she was eating some kind of chicken sandwich or something. And Shidea actually goes and kicks the bike racks that AEW always put around the ring as a ring barricade, and it almost flips over. But what was funny was Britt Baker takes off her shoe. Well, a lot of women do that. That wasn't the funny part. The funny part was that she had it with the heel facing her. Usually most women, when they take off their shoe and they're going to hit somebody with it, they turn it around so the spiky heel is facing the person they're going to hit. She didn't do that. So I think that's what got me. It was hilarious. And then Shideo had to go over and collect, her robe and all of her other things that she had. Well, Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy are over there, and Chuck Taylor is actually the one holding her stuff for her. And I just found that kind of cool. It's the little moments like that, I think, that make AEW for me. It's more home style. It's not this flash production where I feel like it's just totally fake. It's real moments kind of like that. Well, we go to commercial, and then we come back to Cody and Tony are actually talking about Jon Moxley and Jake Hager basically being on a collision path, and how it all started last month. Jon Moxley, since winning hit the title from Chris Jericho, the Inner Circle's kind of been after him. And last month, Jake Hager kind of stepped up and became center stage. He was the one that put Moxley through the stage with an assisted powerbomb. And like I said during that episode, I thought that they were mocking the Shield, basically, by using the 3-man assisted powerbomb. But Jake Hager, was in the middle of it all. Well, Jon Moxley then cut a promo talking about how the Inner Circle really needed to watch their blind side. But he hadn't been medically cleared. But last week, Jon Moxley actually came out in Jack Hager's blind side, and they got into a back and forth brawl where Moxley got the best of him by hitting a paradigm shift on him. Well, for those of you who didn't know, this week on AEW Dark, Jake Hager actually came out and surprised Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley actually had a match on AEW Dark this week, and after the match, Jake Hager got Jon Moxley in the arm triangle, and he put Moxley to sleep. And then he kind of smacked him a little bit to wake him up and left him laying there in the ring. So what they did was then, after they reminded us basically of all this, they played a video package. And it started out with Jake Hager questioning whether Jon Moxley truly knew who he was and what he was capable of. Well, what they do in this video package is they kind of flash back and forth. So then we see Jon Moxley informing everyone that AEW is the hottest promotion in the world, and how he, Jon Moxley, is on top of it, holding the belt. And he knows that he is pissing people off, just like Jake Hager, who think they can beat him. And then he calls out him having his Painmaker posse, the Inner Circle posse, and how he really doesn't need a posse because he's a one-man wrecking machine. Well, then we kind of flash to Chris Jericho, who's sitting in a bar alone and just wants to remind Jon Moxley that the Inner Circle incapacitated him and put him out for several weeks where he couldn't get medically cleared, and they can always do that again. Jake Hager steps in and says he doesn't care if the fans are happy. All he truly cares about is winning, and how he knows that after winning the AEW title, Jon Moxley, cut a promo where he said he was about the fans and that he wanted to give the fans what he wanted. And Jake Hager reiterated he could care less what the fans actually, want. So Jon Moxley then reminds everyone and recounts that he has ridden many roads and traveled all over the place with Jake Hager, and how he kind of knows him inside and out, and that he knows Hager can strangle him with his bare hands and put him to sleep, render him unconscious at basically any given time. He knows that. He's aware of that. So then they flash back to Jake Hager, who says Moxley is beneath him, and that Moxley does not have the ruthless aggression that it takes. That he doesn't feel like he has the passion. So Moxley says that's fine. he likes to play dangerous games. And then they kick it back to Tony Schiavone, and they show the graphic that a match has now been set, that in 2 weeks, it's going to be Jake Hager versus Jon Moxley in an empty arena in a no-holds-barred match for the AEW Championship. And I thought that was an excellent promo, an excellent way of doing it. Bringing the back and forth with Jon Moxley, Jake Hager, showing the clips while they were talking, showing them while they were talking, bringing Chris Jericho in, things like that. I absolutely loved that. I thought it was a great build-up. I even caught and loved Jake Hager's little snide remark about ruthless aggression. Because we all know on the WWE Network, that's their new documentary that they've been talking about, is the Ruthless Aggression era. And so them bomb dropping the WWE with inside jokes that people know, and if they don't, hopefully they listen to my podcast, or they read about it, or they listen to it on other podcasts, and then they're in on the joke also. Then we come back from commercial, and we find out that basically it's the beginning of second hour, and that Colt, Boom Boom Cabana, is going to take over for Cody. Cody's got to go get ready for his match, so Colt's going to be doing some announcing with Tony, and they start off talking about Lance Archer making his debut tonight. And then Tony mentions, obviously, this is Colt's first round opponent in the tournament. And this is where Colt says, that he's taking him on. He's not scared of him, that he knows that a lot of people in AEW are, and that he has faced this before, and even though he is huge and he is dangerous, that he feels like using humor and his bag of tricks that, he can come up with a win. And then they immediately start talking about his debut. Well, out hits the music, and they introduce, and we see Marco Stunt come out. And my first thought was, this is a bad joke. And they really did announce Marco Stunt, because I had convinced myself when I heard the music, they announced Marco Stunt, I thought, oh, it's Luchasaurus taking on Lance Archer. No, it's Marco Stunt, and he comes out without Luchasaurus or Jungle Boy. And I'm thinking, really, AEW, you did this? This is awful. But Tony says that, no, this is happening. It's going to be Marco Stunt versus Lance Archer. But first, Jake the Snake Roberts has something he would like to say. So Jake the Snake does a promo about how pissed off Lance Archer is about the silly little games that the boys, and I'm using air quotes, are playing with him, and how they shouldn't have made Lance Archer mad, and how they, meaning him and Lance Archer, they don't play games, and they don't gamble, because gambling is for fools, and how Cody maybe has enough sense and is smart enough to afraid of Lance Archer. Or maybe Brandy is telling him not to go to a meeting and not to get in the ring with Lance Archer. He's not sure which. And then Jake looks immediately right into the camera like he's talking straight to Cody and says he's pretty sure that Brandy is the one that wears the pants. And then we immediately get the graphic that slowly pops up of the Murder Hawk monster, Lance Archer. And we hear his music hit, and Lance Archer just quickly walks through the tunnel and out to the ring, and he walks to the right side of the ring, like I said, where the heels are, and is kind of ignoring the heels that are standing there, but we see him swing, and we hear a thump as he goes up to get in the ring, and we see a cameraman turn, and Lance Archer has actually hit one of the AEW grips that is working the show, and he is laid out on his back. And then they quickly turn the camera back, and Lance Archer has jumped into the ring and immediately nails Marco. And he is 6'7", and he is dangerous. And we can see Marco kind of laying there, not moving a whole lot. And Lance Archer turns around and leans up against the ropes and starts yelling at Colt Cabana at the announcer's table. Basically, he is super dominant with Marco, which is what I expect. He even puts a submission move on Marco at one time, and he yells at Aubrey, the referee, to make him quit. And then Marco got a little bit of offense going. It was almost like Lance Archer wasn't expecting him to jump up and try to drop kick him. And it was like a flea trying to drop kick an elephant. But he did try to bounce off the ropes and do a couple moves. But basically Lance Archer swatted him away. And then he hit a one-handed choke slam that I thought was going to put Marco actually through the mat, but didn't, and he pulled him up on the count of 2, and got up, picked Marco up, and did the blackout on him. And kind of trying to describe the blackout for those who haven't seen it, he had Marco behind him almost looking like a cross. He was holding Marco's arms out, and Marco's body was down his back, basically, and then he flips him over his head, almost into a powerbomb motion. I want to see him try to do that to Colt Cabana. I think if he can get the blackout done on Colt Cabana, I think a lot of people are going to stand up and really start paying attention, because I think that's going to look super, super impressive. Lance Archer rolls out of the ring and then immediately kind of turns back and gets back into the ring and rolls Marco over to the ring apron. Well, Austin and Billy Gunn, the Gun Show, starts hollering at him to leave Marco alone. So Lance Archer literally picks Marco up with one hand, and then with the other hand on the back of Marco's pants, picks him up and just tosses him I would guess it was about 8 feet, 7, 8 feet, over to the gun club. And I'm going to be honest with you, they didn't catch him. I'm not sure whether they were supposed to catch him, but they didn't. They didn't catch him at all. So, almost immediately after that, we go to commercial and Tony comes back with Colt and they start talking about the Exalted One, where we immediately flash to a vignette cut by the Exalted One, Brody Lee. And he is standing up in front of a table with a TV screen behind him, and he is addressing the Dark Order, and of course they're all wearing masks. The thing is, I understand what they're doing. I really do. They've got Brody Lee in a suit, and I understand he is making inside jokes about Vince McMahon. I totally get it. So don't write me. If you want to write me, you obviously can write me at wrestlingovertime@gmail.com, or tweet me, or Facebook me, or Facebook Messenger me at Wrestling Overtime. Please don't about this, though. I know that he's making fun of Vince McMahon. I get that. The issue is, he's not completely acting like Vince McMahon. He's wearing a very ill-fitting suit, and he needs to get a better suit. Vince McMahon takes pride in how he looks, and having Brody Lee wear an untailored suit jacket and buttoning it, but where he is big, it gaps open at the bottom and gaps open at the top, and then he is wearing a old style Vince McMahon wide tie. He just basically doesn't look like Vince McMahon. I have never seen Vince McMahon in an ill-fitting, cheap suit with the button buttoned and then it gapping open where you can see his white dress shirt. He doesn't do that. The wide tie effect, yeah, you knew that part was Vince McMahon. That was fine. But if they don't want to be making fun of Vince McMahon, yes, that's what they're doing. But if they're going to have plausible deniability that they're not making fun of Vince McMahon, then Brody Lee needs to dress better anyway, because he is now the leader of this cult that he's trying to make a big deal of and trying to prove that, they are a powerhouse. Well, if you're a powerhouse and you're a leader of this cult, act like it. Dress better. I just feel like part of Brody Lee is still a slob. And I thought he was a slob in WWE. And that's kind of what he's portraying now, that he's a slob. But anyway, to get back to the vignette. He yells at one of the masked men for calling him Mr. Lee. He corrects him and says, "Call me Mr. Brody," and the masked man says, "Yes, sir, Exalted One." And again, he says, "Mr. Brody." And then he says, "Hey, tell the people what I told you to tell them to say." So the masked man holds up, the clawed signal and says, "We are the one." And he basically says it like that. "We are the one." And Brody Lee picks up a glass and throws it against the wall, shattering it. And says, "No, it is." And he holds up the claw in a completely different way, in a more powerful motion, and yells, "We are the one," very powerfully. And the masked man that he's been talking to kind of cowers away from him to get away from him. And then we see a masked man on the other side of the table yawning. And Brody Lee sits down in a chair beside of him, wheels close to him, and says, "Is there something going on at home?" And the guy answers, "No." And he said, "Well, is there a reason you are tired or exhausted or something?" And the guy kind of very slightly shakes his head no. Brody Lee says, "There's nothing in the world to be open. There's no reason for you to be yawning in my presence. Do you understand what tiredness shows people? It shows weakness. Are you weak? Don't you ever yawn in my presence again. Go." And we see the masked man scampering away. And, that basically ends the vignette. And of course, again, we're making fun of Vince McMahon as far as he doesn't like the yawning, any falling asleep, sneezing. There are endless stories of WWE taking cross-country flights and him yelling at wrestlers for falling asleep. He never wanted anyone to fall asleep on the plane, let alone on a cross-country flight. And so many of them would turn up music so that they could stay awake and not catch the wrath of Vince McMahon. And that's what Brody Lee's doing. And I'm just having fun. I'm glad he's, doing something cathartic for him. But let's make it a little bit more funnier. Or let's go the other side and actually make him act like the cocky, professional, sharp-dressed Vince McMahon. But anyway, we get a match of numbers 8 and 9 from the Dark Order coming out to face the Natural Nightmares, which is QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes, and of course they're escorted by Brandy Rhodes. And we're told they are actually 2-0 as a tag team, and as the match starts off, QT shows 8 and 9 the mask that the Dark Order gave him, trying to get him to join the Dark Order. He basically throws it up in the air and then nails both 8 and 9. And I thought there was really nice tag work between QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes. It was really quick, in and out, them doing a couple moves, tagging, going, really quick, doing a couple moves, tagging. I thought that they were pretty fluid. I've actually been impressed with QT. I understand that he runs his own wrestling school. He's fairly polished, especially now that he's had some work. And I think I'm going to actually like this tag team, And so, the guys playing the Dark Order are awful. I mean, awful. They're really small. They're skinny. Their Dark Order outfits don't really fit. They're really baggy. They don't look like the creepers that they had before, that came out with Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. it's just really just sad and pitiful to see, because they were pretty sloppy and they flopped around a lot and were really overselling. I mean, at one point, I think it was Dustin did a suplex, a belly-to-belly suplex, and the guy jumped around and hollered and moaned and groaned and grabbed his back, and I was thinking, really? My 3-year-old niece doesn't even act that bad. You guys are really bad actors. I know this is weird. I'm kind of wanting to see Dustin versus Murder Hawk Lance Archer. In this tournament, like I said, Dustin Rhodes is taking on Kip Sabian. And I think he'll win, and then, Lance Archer's taking on Colt Cabana, and I'm pretty sure Lance Archer is gonna win that one, and so that would put Dustin Rhodes against Murder Hawk, and I am interested in seeing that. Am I wrong to be interested in that? Because they're about the same size. I know Murder Hawk is taller than him at 6'7", but Dustin is also probably just as wide, if not a little wider than Lance Archer. And with his quick belly-to-belly suplexes and the Dusty Rhodes move of falling and doing the uppercut and things like that, I look for him to get offense on him, and it to turn out to be a pretty good match. And I'm kind of excited about it. And then at the end, they do some kind of double team move. Dustin picks the guy up almost in a powerbomb position, but he has instead of his legs straddling him, his legs are on one side, and QT bounces off the ring and grabs the guy's shoulders as Dustin does the powerbomb move, basically. So they're kind of getting both of their power as they do that, and then Dustin basically covers for the win. And they didn't name it. Tony Schiavone or Colt didn't say what they're going to call that or anything, so I don't know if that's going to be their actual tag team finisher or not. They then start celebrating, Dustin and QT. Then they roll out of the ring, and Brandy comes over and is congratulating them. And you can see Dustin kind of looking around, stalling. I don't know whether somebody wasn't ready, or I don't know or they were running early on time. I'm not really sure what was happening, but it was fairly obvious that they were stalling and everything. But then all of a sudden, Brody Lee does walk out. He's wearing his robe of the Exalted One, and Dustin Rhodes steps up to almost protect Brandy and almost QT also in the process. Now, QT is trying to get him out of the way, but Brody Lee doesn't really pay any attention to Dustin Rhodes and walks up, picks up the guy that Dustin just pinned, powerbombs him very powerfully into the mat, and then stares down the other guy that lost, and then walks out of the ring and leaves. Basically sending a message that the Dark Order better start winning, or he's going to take control of them. So then we get a video. Tony says that both Chris Jericho and Matt Hardy sent in videos this week. And what the producers did was kind of splice them together so that we would get an interesting look at what each of them were doing. And I am really looking forward to this because I absolutely love Chris Jericho's promos, and I want to try to get into Broken Matt Hardy. Everybody appears to love him. I know that WWE did not give it even a little remote chance. So I want to get into this. So I'm waiting, and it opens up, the video package opens up with Chris Jericho outside, and he's in his hot tub drinking his bubbly. And he says he's home today because it's a holiday. It's April Fool's Day, and he hasn't met a bigger group of fools than the Elite. And then it flashes to Vanguard 1. And Vanguard 1 is flying in as we're hearing Jericho taking each member of the Elite and insulting them in some way or making fun of them in some way. And then it goes back to showing Chris Jericho talking about the beating and the embarrassment that the Inner Circle is going to be giving the Elite once this virus is done and Jericho decides to let the fans come back, because he hasn't forgot that blood and guts needs to take place. And he starts talking about how they're going to torture them in this blood and guts match. Then we see Jericho actually hear Vanguard 1 coming and flying towards him, and he immediately jumps up out of his hot tub. Now Jericho is wearing pants. Now they're not pants you wear around the house. He's not wearing swimming trunks. He's not even wearing wrestling trunks. Jericho is wearing his black leather pants that he wears to the ring a lot of times. And he picks up his bottle of bubbly. And I'm like, what? What? Why is he wearing pants in the hot tub? And what exactly is he doing? So then Jericho looks at Vanguard 1 and says, Vanguard, I knew you would come. And he invites, again, Vanguard to join the Inner Circle. And he shows him an Inner Circle shirt and says, you need to put this on. And it's on a hanger, and he hangs it from the hook on the bottom part of the drone. And he tells, Vanguard that he really wants him as part of the Inner Circle. And Vanguard slowly starts backing up and turns around and kind of goes to leave. And Jericho actually takes his champagne bottle and throws it, not very good, at Vanguard, and of course it misses him. And then he yells, release the hounds. And we see these 6 motley mutts of domesticated dogs that obviously live with Jericho and are Jericho's dogs, come running out barking at Vanguard as Jericho chases him. And then Tony starts talking about next week. It takes me a minute And then I realized, I need to pause this. So I paused the DVR, and I sit there, and I'm thinking, I thought they said Matt Hardy sent in a video. And so it took me a minute, and I thought he must have sent in the footage that showed what Vanguard 1 was seeing. And I thought, that's stupid. And then as I kind of replayed the vignette and I re-looked over my notes, and I thought, this whole thing was stupid. I thought it started off really good with Jericho enjoying his bubbly in the hot tub, being home, taking off because it was a holiday. I even enjoyed him taking each member of, the elite and making fun of them and insulting them and talking about how, Adam Hangman Page is off somewhere in Tennessee mourning his dead horse Harry. I mean, I was with him. But the whole Vanguard 1 stuff was awful. I know it's hard to cut a promo on a drone. I thought it was stupid. We saw stuff from Vanguard 1's point of view. I really thought Jericho inviting him to join the Inner Circle and giving him a shirt and all of that garbage, I just thought all that was stupid. It's almost like two different people came up with that. It's almost like the first part of it is the promos that we've been seeing Jericho shoot off the cuff since AEW started. But the second half, the Vanguard stuff, was like someone else came up with. Like it wasn't Chris Jericho. I don't know, if Matt Hardy helped him write that. For all I know, the cameraman helped him write that. I don't know. But it didn't seem like it come from the same person. And it didn't seem like Chris Jericho was comfortable. And I know a lot of people, showed that video or memed it or whatever. And it got a lot of traction, but I'm here to tell you, I just didn't think it was that good. The last part of it wasn't funny. It was stupid. And I hope this is not how the Matt Hardy, Chris Jericho program is going to go. I really don't. I hope that it continues with Jericho doing excellent work and that Matt Hardy comes up to his level. But since I said Tony started talking about next week starts the tournament for, the TNT championship. So we're going to start that off with Cody taking on Shawn Spears. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to get Colt Cabana to win Lance Archer in another quarterfinal. And, of course, like I already said, we're going to get Jon Moxley and Jake Hager. And then we hear Colt talking about his match with Lance Archer. And he says, I'm a commentator, I'm a podcaster, I'm a YouTuber, and I'm also a wrestler in only the Colt Cabana way, But I thought it was pretty funny and interesting that they immediately show a picture of Kip Sabian over on the hillside on Hill Row holding up a sign that says John. I thought that was pretty funny. But what it caused me to do was, I was just rambling on about how I can't wait to see Dustin versus Lance Archer. Well, think about it. If there's two upsets, if Kip Sabian upsets Dustin Rhodes, and Colt Cabana upsets Lance Archer. It will actually in the semifinals be Colt Cabana versus Kip Sabian, which they've been having a back and forth for the last 2 weeks. And so that kind of, excites me also. I want to see Kip Sabian versus Colt Cabana. I think it'll be cool. They go to commercial and come back, and they say we're going to get a Nick Jackson update. And we see Nick walking down what appears to be one of their driveways. And, Nick says it's been a month that he's been injured, that he hasn't been in a wrestling ring. And Matt says, well, we can't go to a wrestling ring with everything that's going on. So what I did was I brought a wrestling ring to you. And he said that Matt talks about how this gave him new perspective and how it scared him to watch his brother be in an ambulance and everything. And then they show Nick talking about how he has no clue who took him out. He can't remember being in the ambulance. And then they show Nick actually going through some wrestling exercises of rolling in the ring and then going through some wrestling moves of hitting the rope and jumping over Matt and hitting the other rope and frog jumping him and everything. And then he says, he can't wait to return. But then as he's talking to Matt, he says, I think a return date is hard to say. And so Matt asks, are you ready to get back in the ring? And Nick says, no, not yet. And I was just like, really? Okay. Now here's the problem. I'm gonna step out of the wrestling bubble for a minute. The problem is he can't be ready yet. It's my understanding that they actually went home to California. They cut the angle where Nick got hurt. His wife was pregnant. She was due at any time. He wanted to be there, obviously, for the birth of the baby. She has since had the baby. And Matt and Nick have, obviously seen the baby and are playing with it and spending time with it. The issue is because they went back to California to be there for the birth of Nick's son, in the meantime, California instituted their travel ban. So they are stuck in California, as is Excalibur. And that's why we're not seeing Excalibur on TV, is they are all stuck in California and can't get out. So by him saying it's hard to say when he's returning, that is so true. It is hard to say because we're not sure, when the pandemic bans are going to start getting lifted. Which kind of sucks for all of us because we're not going to see the Young Bucks. We're not even going to see Matt. So, I don't know. It's just weird. Now, we're ready for the main event. I want to take a little time, and I know that we're over an hour. I try to keep these, about an hour. But I really want to talk about this match. Number one, I think this match sets up so much. It is Sammy Guevara and Shawn Spears versus Darby Allin and Cody. Like I said earlier, Cody's taking on Shawn Spears next week. Sammy Guevara and Darby are against each other in the tournament also. Depending on who wins, these four guys can be taking on each other in different combinations of the tournament. So they're in a tag team match, and there are so many different angles along with the Sammy Darby angle that they have taken on each other, and they're rivals. They're both young. They're both trying to climb up the ladder. They're trying to win the crowd over and all of that. But then we've got Shawn Spears and Cody, who both escaped WWE, were done wrong by WWE. Shawn Spears comes out, hits Cody in the head on accidentally, slashes him open, and he has stitches in real life. That was not supposed to happen. So they've got that going on. Then we have the fact that Darby has taken on Cody and taken him to the limit, and they have a tie and have never had a rematch. They've never went back against each other. So we have not only the TNT tournament, but we've got their own personal issues and wrestling issues and all of that going on. And I immediately think, I'm watching as they come out, and of course Sammy Guevara comes out first, and they introduce him as the Spanish God. And I look, and I immediately notice that Sammy Guevara's career in AEW is 8-12. And I'm like, really? And then his record in 2020 is 4-6. And he's a member of the Inner Circle, the faction, the biggest heel faction in AEW, and he's 4-6. And then the chairman, Shawn Spears, comes out with Tully Blanchard, and as an AEW career, he's 6-11. And in 2020, he's 1-6, and he just got his one victory last time he wrestled. Before that, he was 0-6. So I'm thinking, how is this crew taking on Darby and Cody? And this should be, honestly, when you're looking at it on paper, should be a total squash match. Because when Darby comes out, he's ranked number 5 in AEW. He has a 4-4 record in 2020 and a 9-8 record overall in AEW. And then Cody comes out, and he's ranked number 3 in AEW, and he's 6-2 in 2020, and he's 12-5-1 in his career in AEW. So we've got two guys that have losing records against the number 3 guy in AEW and the number 5 guy in AEW. And I was like, how is this supposed to be a match? We see Cody come out, and he doesn't have Arn with him. And I understand that Arn and Tully are both probably not there because of their age. But we see Cody do his shirt-ripping gimmick, and he goes to throw it to the fans, and he throws it to Chuck Taylor of the Best Friends. I thought that was a little funny. And then Cody goes to get into the ring like he normally does, and he can't, because Darby is sitting in the corner like he normally does. Because if you've noticed, when Darby comes in the ring, he jumps up on the ring post, he yells, and then he goes and sits in the corner and waits for them to announce him, stands up, takes off his jacket, and goes. Well, because he's sitting in the corner like he normally does, Cody can't get in the ring like he normally does. So Cody actually has to walk across the ring apron and then get in. And so what he does is he reaches down and kind of pats Darby on the leg, and Darby kind of looks up at him with annoyance on his face, because that is his normal routine of sitting in the corner and kind of staring and almost getting himself in the mindset to take a bunch of pain. And Cody has interrupted that. So Cody then holds out his hand to help him up. And Darby does accept that, and he stands up and he kind of shoots Cody, this look. And Cody immediately starts getting pumped up, and then as he's announced, he jumps down out of the ring and goes and acts like he's going to kiss Trent from the Best Friends, but doesn't. He goes over to his wife, who is standing beside of him, and gives her his normal kiss. And so he gets back up and he asks Darby, "You can see?" And Darby says, I'll start this off. Well, as he looks across the ring, Sammy is in the ring, and Darby immediately goes to lock up, and Sammy walks backwards and slaps Shawn Spears, tags him, and Shawn Spears gets in. Well, Shawn Spears points at Cody. Well, you can see Darby, like, I am in here. I chose to do this. And so he does tag Cody, but you can kind of tell he isn't in the best frame of mind. Now, Cody immediately takes over. Cody and Darby have really nice offense going on. They're working together, they're tagging in and out, and everything. They are really working together good. At one point, though, Sammy gets in, and him and Darby are locked up, and Shawn Spears comes into the ring to help, and so Cody gets in the ring. Aubrey, who is the referee, doesn't see Shawn Spears do that. She sees Cody first. So while Cody is talking to Darby and backing up and trying to get out of the ring, what he is doing by helping, and yes, I'm doing air quotes, Darby, by trying to take up for him, really what happens is the tide turns, because Sammy and Spears are allowed to basically tag team Darby and punish him. And Darby is starting to sell the pain that he is feeling and everything. We then see Sammy and Shawn Spears start pulling money out and gambling, betting on things. Shawn Spears bets that he can hold Darby up in a suplex position, upside down, straight up, in a vertical position for 10 seconds. So they bet $50, and of course the heels side counts, and Shawn holds him up for 10 seconds. So he slams him and immediately tags Sammy, and Sammy throws more money down, and so does Shawn, and Sammy says, "I'll hold him up for 15 seconds. So he again gets Darby in a vertical position where he does hold him up for 15 seconds. So he slams Darby, immediately tags Spears, and Spears throws more money down with Sammy and says, I'm going to hold him up for 20. Well, he doesn't hold him up for very long before Darby shifts his weight and gets out of it, reverses it, and starts taking over, kind of. So we see Sammy jump down and basically collect all of the money and is putting it up as Darby tags in Cody. They go to commercial, come back, and Cody eventually gets Shawn Spears in the Fatal Four. And Sammy, who is outside, gets back in and breaks it up with a shooting star, landing basically more on Cody's legs, but on both of their legs of the Figure Four. And Cody then goes to get after Sammy, and Shawn Spears grabs him and pulls him out of the ring by his feet, and then throws him into the barricades, and he ends up going over the barricade. So Cody lands on the heel side of the barricade. In the meantime, Darby gets in the ring and does a suicide flip into Spears as all of the heels beat on Cody. And Britt Baker actually takes off her shoe like she did earlier and starts beating Cody. And they go to commercial. After the commercial, when they come back, Darby is actually in the ring and he is getting going. His offense is going high speed, and he is zooming around the ring, doing a lot of smooth, natural moves. And he goes to hit Shawn Spears with another suicide dive on the babyface side of the ring. Shawn Spears actually catches him and flips him over the babyface side of the barricade. So we lose sight of Darby. In the meantime, Sammy was beating on Cody, also on the babyface side of things. And so Spears jumps in. As Tony and Colt are saying, well, where's Darby? Where did he go? Well, the cameraman finds him. We see Darby Allin climbing a pole. It's near ringside and near the barricade, and there are no rings on it that he is putting his feet on. Darby Allin literally has his legs wrapped around this pole and is climbing up using his legs and arms. And as he gets to the top, Cody moves out of the way and Darby hits the coffin drop from the top of the pole. And oh my goodness, if you have not seen this, you need to look up highlights of it. You need to go to AEW.com. You need to go to YouTube. I am sure it's somewhere on there. You need to see this coffin drop. It is from 10, 15 feet in the air. Afterwards, he gets up and he throws Shawn Spears into the ring. And he then goes to climb up the ring post to do the coffin drop off the ring post to Shawn Spears. However, Sammy jumps in the ring and climbs up the ring post to Darby and hits him and throws him, or shoves him, basically, off the ring post. And Cody then gets in the ring, grabs Sammy, and does a backward suplex on him. Because both Sammy and Cody are laying there, Spears climbs up on a ring post and does the frog splash on Cody as Sammy slithers out of the ring and grabs a chair. He throws it into the ring to Shawn Spears, who picks it up and is getting ready to nail Cody again with a chair. But Darby flies into the ring and actually grabs the chair away from Shawn Spears. And as he puts it down by his side, as he grabs it away, Sammy, who is outside of the ring, grabs it away from Darby, so Darby turns around. And when he turns around, that allows Shawn Spears to grab him and roll him up for the win. Shawn Spears immediately gets out of the ring. We have Cody, who just got frog splashed and almost smashed with a chair. He is starting to recover. But we see Brandy holding her head and looking utterly shocked. And we see Darby facing away from Cody, holding his head, like he absolutely cannot believe they lost that match. So Cody gets up, walks over to Darby, and goes to pat him kind of on the neck, and Darby jerks away. And we see Cody say, "I'm sorry," and he pulls on Darby's arm as Darby is trying to stand up. And Darby also jerks away and hasn't turned around, but Cody goes to touch him again, and when he does, Darby turns around and decks Cody with a forearm. And then when Cody, or as Cody is laying there on the mat, he takes off his wrist bandage and throws it at Cody and rolls out of the ring and just immediately walks through the tunnel. And it's the most pissed, frustrated, upset that I've seen Darby. And I've seen a lot of his YouTube matches. I've looked him up on YouTube. Cody stands up and looks a little confused as Tony Schiavone gives us the famous "Fans, we are out of time." And I'm thinking, wow. And I really wanted to break that down for you guys. I know it took a little while. I know I took a lot of notes. And the reason is because, as I told you guys before I started talking about this match, there were so many different ways they could have taken this match. You know, we've got Cody versus Shawn Spears. We've got we've got Darby versus Sammy Guevara in the tournament. But obviously there is still bad blood between Cody and Darby. Darby took him to the time limit. Had Darby actually won that match, can you imagine what AEW would have been? Cody doesn't get the title match opportunity against Jericho. If he doesn't get that title match, MJF doesn't have a match to throw in the towel and then low blow Cody. If that doesn't happen, then the cage match against Wardlow and the lashes don't happen. The match between MJF and Cody doesn't happen. And Darby may have skyrocketed to AEW's rankings and gotten a match against Jericho before Jericho could have really scouted him. And who knows, he could have surprised Jericho. So all of that, I'm sure, has went through Cody and Jericho's heads. I like this. I like this program. I like Darby showing some frustration, some guts, some aggression, and basically just getting frustrated at where he is, where he wants to be, and how he wants to get there, and how he is almost a one-man wrecking crew, just like Jon Moxley. And I love this. I love how they ended it. I think this was an awesome show. Again, I really didn't notice that the crowd wasn't there. Again, this brings me back to my childhood when they had the studio shows. I didn't mind the heels being on one side and the baby faces being on another, especially when the heels started hitting Cody. You know, I enjoyed the commentary. I always enjoy Colt Cabana and Tony. I love Colt Cabana. I listen to his podcast. But I really enjoy Cody and Tony on commentary. Yes, I miss JR. Yes, I miss Taz. No, I don't miss Excalibur. I wish he would go away. But, you know, I am enjoying these. And so this is giving me entertainment, something to look forward to during the week while sports are gone. And so I can't get onto this. I can't rant about a lot. That's why you didn't hear a lot of rants tonight. I am raving about AEW and what they've done and what they're planning on putting together and where the different directions they can go with the programs they've built. I'm excited. Now, of course, if you guys disagree with me, or you agree with me, whatever, write me. Tell me. Guys, if you've got any questions, comments, problems, protests, holler at me on Facebook. Tweet me on Twitter. We're on Wrestling Overtime. Write me on wrestlingovertime@gmail.com. DM me, messenger me. I will talk wrestling to you guys. And I absolutely cannot wait for later today to start WrestleMania. I think it's an awful card. I think a lot of the card is easy to predict. But somewhere in the back of my head, I still love wrestling. I hope they swerve us. I hope they surprise us. I hope because they are allowed to edit things and produce things and go back and retape things. I hope it turns out awesome. But we're going to see. And I will be talking to you real soon.